Kensington College. Continuing our series on ExcelVBA, we'll take a look today at the application object. The application object really represents Excel itself. Application object sits at the top of the tree, followed by the workbooks collection with the individual workbooks and the worksheets collection and so on. So we could consider that Excel itself is at the top of the tree with the represented by the application object. For example, we might want to change some of the options within Excel. Let's take a look. For example, we go into the options, into the general, and take a look at the number of worksheets that open by default. You can see at the bottom there, sheet 1, sheet 2, 3. We've got three worksheets at the moment. I'll change that. Now what I'll do, I'll go to put a button on the sheet and then double click on that, and I can try and application sheets. And change that to 5. If I now run the code and then go to my options, we should find that the number has been changed to 5. So you know that when we next start up Excel, it will have 5 worksheets. We could try, for example, changing the status bar. Once again, an application property. So if I were to run that, you'll see that at the bottom here it says calculating. If I want to set that back to blank, well, I do just that. That's the way I would set it back, and you'll see that that's disappeared from the bottom on the status line. You might want to consider the screen updating. Now you can set that equal to true or false. What that is useful for is when you're running some code which is taking quite a long time to run, you might like to make it a bit quicker. It saves Excel going off and updating the screen. Might quicken things up somewhat. The display alerts is useful when we want to, when we're saving something, the dialog box that comes up, you can repress it basically and say display alerts equals false. It won't ask you whether you want to save something or not. You could try that yourself, and then it closes the workbook and then it turns them back on again. I don't think that's really necessary. When you jump out of that function, it will turn back to true anyway, but to be safe, make it true. But it's supposed to save your changes. You won't get any warning. It'll just disappear and save it. No warning, but Microsoft says that it does save the changes. In fact, if you try it, you'll find that your changes are not saved, unfortunately. So be careful. We've had a look before at the worksheets function, whereby you've got a series of Excel. You can access the Excel worksheet function. That should be, you can access the Excel functions from there, and you can see them all. There's quite a wealth of them. Trigonometric functions, statistical functions, as you know. Then you can try, for example, the sum, and we can consider a range. We can put that equal to some, if we want to, for example, some numbers here and put the result into that particular cell. We can do that by running that code. And you can see it puts the result in there, but it's interesting that you don't actually have the formula at the top. You're you're just calling on the sum function, but you're not actually placing it into the spreadsheet. There is a difference there. If you wanted to place the formula itself, what would you use? You'd use the formula property, would put the actual formula into the cell. For example, we're used to the payment function. You might have seen that in Excel already, so you can call it from VBA, obviously. You can see that we've got the 5% interest rate. So we work out the monthly interest rate because we're considering the monthly repayment. So what this does is it takes a mortgage of 100,000 and works out how much payment will be required over 20 years. 20 years because you're making 20 monthly payments, the interest rate being 5%, and as I say, this is the monthly interest rate which you need to put into the formula, and the number of periods, which is 20 multiplied by 12. So that should work out the payment for you. It's quite a difficult calculation because the capital of 10,000 is decreasing by whatever you pay off all the time, and as you decrease it, the interest rate is the interest on a reduced rate, and so you need to work out what it will need to pay to actually, and the answer is minus 660 pounds almost per month should pay it off and leave you with exactly zero at after 20 years. We'll talk about the enable events. So we'll go back to our, you may recall we were using worksheet functions, and indeed we'll look at the worksheet change. There is a danger when you're using the worksheet change, because if you were to put something in here like cells 1, for example, equals 2, I wouldn't dare run that, because what it's doing, it's when you change something in the worksheet, it will call the change event, and then you'll put something in there which causes the change event again. So you'll be running around and you'll have what you could term as a chain reaction. It'll just seize things up. So we won't dare do that. But what we could do is set up stop the event happening by using application enable events equals false. So that could be quite useful, and the idea would be to switch it back on again after you've written some code in there. You don't have to do that, actually. It will turn on automatically as you exit, but it's a good idea to set it back equal to true, and then you can write your code to do certain things inside. How about the application undo? Should do what it says and undo whatever we just did. So if I'll just put a breakpoint there and change that to 45, for example, and it if we were to, for example, to try this piece of code, let's see what the effect of that piece of code is. If I were to run this now, and I change in here at the top to some